Hey, everybody. Welcome to Crunching Your Growth. I am Phil Masiello, entrepreneur, brand builder, and founder of Crunch Growth Revenue Acceleration Agency. We've been helping brands scale for profitably over 12 years now, and we've been doing it profitably. But before we jump in, let me be a little bit straight with you. There's a lot of so-called coaches and marketing experts out there that never actually built anything themselves. They read from someone else's playbook and it's not their own. And that's not me, and that's not this show. I've built and scaled 3 successful startup brands. I've exited companies. I've lived the grind of launching, scaling, pivoting, winning. And today, my team and I help grow every single day across e-commerce, retail, and emerging digital platforms. We help brands grow. We don't just teach theory, we write books on it. So when you listen to this show, you're not just getting advice from me and other entrepreneurs, you're getting real world experience, lessons learned in the trenches, wins, losses that shape the playbook that we use to help brands thrive. So if you're serious about scaling, about doing the work it takes to build something that lasts, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. Today, we have a powerhouse guest, Stephen Marinaro, better known as TheSalonGuy, a beauty industry legend, entrepreneur, a content creator. He built a global brand at the intersection of style, media, and purpose. He's got over 30 years in the business. He shares how he scaled his best-selling hair product line, how he created viral content with millions of views, and how he launched Why, What, How, that movement to help people discover their purpose and monetize their passion. He's got a book out, which we'll talk about. So this is a masterclass in reinvention. It's a masterclass in branding, bold entrepreneurship. So if you're looking to accelerate your growth, you won't want to miss this conversation. So let's bring Stephen in and let's talk about where he's heading and what he's done and why he's going where he's going. So Stephen, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate you being on the show. So tell us a little bit, take us back to the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the industry, how you got to where you are today.
Phil, thank you so much, firstly, for that great intro. And I'm going to have a T-shirt with that intro. I'm going to walk around with it. Thank you. That was great. Yeah, it's always interesting to kind of go back to where I first started. I initially got into the beauty industry because I wanted to be around beautiful women. I mean, I had a crush on a girl who worked at a hair salon, and I said, I want to meet her. Back then, it wasn't really considered stalking, but I said, I'm looking for a job. I just graduated high school. I went into the salon. It was down the street from where I lived, and I grew up in Jersey. I'm a Jersey guy, and I went in and I wanted to meet this girl, and she was like, "You're a lot younger than I thought." I'm like, "You're a lot older than I thought, huh?" So she goes, "Are you a hairstylist?" And I'm like, "No, I just graduated high school. I'm looking for a job." Like, I had no idea about the hair industry, and that's what really kind of introduced me to the hair industry. And then I learned, hey, you can go to school for it. And at the time, I was a party animal.
Yeah.
So I was a nightclub DJ, DJing in New York City. I was just, focused on partying more than anything else when I was young. But yeah, that's kind of what introduced me to the industry, was just want to be around girls,
That's great. I heard an interview one time from John Lennon was on one of these talk shows talking about it. The presenter said, "Why did you get into the music business?" And he said, "Everybody who gets into the music business wants to do it to meet girls. That's your primary reason." And he said, and then you realize that you can make money. So
pretty much, and then you nailed it. And then they said you can go to school for this, and I was like, so I didn't really have any real direction at that time. My guidance counselor in high school was like, "Yeah, your grades aren't good enough to get into this college." I'm like, "What am I going to do?" So, unfortunately, in the hair industry, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't know what else to do. I'll go to beauty school." Right? We heard the beauty school dropouts, so I went to beauty school, and that's what introduced me to the industry. And it wasn't easy for me at first because first of all, I was the only male student in the class, which again was kind of cool, but it was really tough for me because I wasn't used to that environment. And I was also not used to really working with hair in that way. So that introduced me to it. I ended up, going to school for 2 years, cosmetology school. And I'll never forget, I went to my first hair show ever. And if anyone listening or watching has ever been to a trade show, when you first go to your first one, like a car show, you walk in and you're just like, oh my gosh, like you just light up. And I'll never forget when I walked in and I saw there was the site I set my eyes on. There was a guy in a suit working on beautiful blonde models. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy on stage working on beautiful blondes. And it turns out he worked for a huge beauty company, which I later then ended up working for. He became my mentor. And, I was very, very fortunate to have a mentor early on in my career, graduated cosmetology school. And then that kind of is what started me in the industry, working in numerous salons. And, it's been a long journey from that point to today.
Yeah, I'll bet. It's a tough industry because it's very fragmented. And, you really have to know how to get, well, I would imagine a lot of it has to be location driven to get women to come in, but also women or men and women are both particular about who's cutting their hair and what it looks like. And also I would imagine it takes a long time to build up that sort of loyalty to you as a hairdresser. So, but then you went on and you built a hair product line.
Yes. 15 years ago is when I started the TheSalonGuy brand. And, and then there's another, 15 years or so baked on top of that to as far as being in the industry, and 30, like you mentioned, 30 years I've been in the salon industry and hair industry. And, taking it back even further from that, I was fortunate to work for two of the largest beauty companies in the world at the time, L'Oreal Professional and Paul Mitchell. And, I started out with L'Oreal when I was 21. And thanks to my mentor, he kind of put me through the ringer to really see what's out there. This guy had me interview 75 salons in order to even work for L'Oreal. I had to be in the industry for 3 years working at a salon and have that experience under my belt. So he made me interview 75 salons, and I went into 75 salons and I had to rate them from 1 to 5. And I did that. I went into Manhattan. And what that did for me was it exposed me to what's out there. There's so many people who have no idea what's even out there when it comes to their business. Maybe they've worked in one place, one job they've had. They've worked at one hair salon, one cafe, one restaurant, whatever it is. They've only seen one.
Yeah.
When you see, 100, whatever it is, it exposes you to what's really out there. And I was fortunate enough to do that and see that. And, at the end of the 3-year period where I was ready to try out, I had to audition to work for L'Oreal. He goes, now you're ready. And I'm like, ready for what? You put me through hell for 3 years. He goes, now you know what not to do. And I was like, whoa, I didn't really get that until later. So I had to see the worst of the worst to then see the best of the best and appreciate that. When I started my YouTube channel and my brand, it was really based off of two things. One, a major tragedy in my life. My mother, who adopted me, she had passed away, right? She had passed away, and this was a woman who, adopted me when she was older, and I was adopted into a fully Italian family, and a very, very fortunate upbringing. And I did it, one, in her memory, and also by watching a YouTube video. And I saw a video by a gentleman named Gary Vaynerchuk, which I'm sure you and a lot of people know. Sure. And he was doing a keynote speech, and he said, stop doing bleep that you hate. And I read his book, Crush It, How to Turn Your Passion into a Business. That is what got me going. I read that book step by step and followed it. And then the product line came, and then building an audience came, and all of it just built on top of each other. But there's so many layers to that we can discuss. But yeah, the product line is a part of it. Building a YouTube channel is a part of it. I was one of the first people in the salon industry 15 years ago to do what I was doing as a media personality, as a personal brand.
So when you were working for L'Oreal and Paul Mitchell, what were you doing? Were you sales, going in and selling to salons, or what were you doing?
I was actually, I was an educator. So I would go and teach.
Go in and talk to them about the products. I got you.
Teach. I was teaching. So for L'Oreal, I was teaching hair coloring as well as the products. Paul Mitchell, I was teaching hair color, hair cutting techniques, products. And what's interesting is I was never a sales guy,
Right.
but people wanted to buy from me because I was so good at teaching.
Right.
And that's where I learned the art of educating and presenting myself on camera, was by working for huge beauty companies. So I learned the art of sales through education, which is very difficult to learn.
It's difficult to learn, but it's actually a better way of doing it, and it's more applicable today than ever before. The demographic under 45 is really not responding to traditional advertising techniques. They're just not, and so they want to understand why why I should buy your product, why I should interact with you, why I should buy what you're selling. And the second thing is they want to understand who I'm buying it from. They're not responding to the big companies, the faceless brands that are just running traditional ads anymore. And we see it every single day because of the amount of ads that we place. And we are much more, we try and educate our clients who are personality owned brands, that they have to step out of their comfort zone, and they have to get in front of the camera, so to speak, to talk about their brand, because that's what people want. They want to understand who they're buying from and why they should buy it from them.
And you nailed it. That's my biggest competition, is competing with a no-name hair product, some 22-year-old who lives at home and makes videos in his bedroom under his bed, making sea salt sprays in their bathroom, in their kitchen, and that's who I'm up against. And they either do have a face, they have no street cred, no authenticity. It's either them or the faceless brands, aka stuff made overseas. There's no person behind it. It's just the cost is so low, and people are window shopping and they go, "Oh, it's very low cost. I don't care. I can afford that," and they buy it. And meanwhile, they're taking over so much of the market.
Well, yeah, I had this conversation this morning with someone. We were talking about Amazon specifically, and they were saying, building a brand on Amazon isn't enough anymore because there's so much competition for products coming in from overseas. And I said, the one thing I learned about building a brand is that if you can build a brand that has a message, and the message resonates with people, and you can get out there and talk about your message, you're going to have a client, you're going to have a customer. They're going to buy your product. Now, if they see a product that's similar, but it's a lot less expensive, will they buy it? Probably. They'll buy it. Maybe they'll buy it once, but they probably won't buy it a second time, and they'll come back, because what they'll learn is, wow, that's one is quality and one's not. But you have to be able to build a brand. You have to focus on building a brand first and foremost. In our business, we don't take on clients who aren't building brands. We're not interested. We can't work with somebody who's just a seller or who has just a seller mentality. You have to be authentic. You have to be building a brand, because if not, your time is limited. If you're just selling, if I decided tomorrow to take products that you sell, I don't have any passion in the business, I don't know anything about it, I just go and find the cheapest product and start selling it on Amazon. Will I do sales? Yeah, I'll do some sales. I won't get repetitive business, but that's short lived. Those guys burn out because they can't. The key to successful e-commerce or selling in general, the key is repeat purchases. I don't care if you're selling in retail. I don't care if you're selling on e-commerce. If you have a crummy product, it's eventually going to come out, and you're just going to fall apart. You're going to die on the vine. So building a brand is always the most important thing.
Yeah, I would agree. And what's really interesting is, how many people have you met who say, "Oh, I'm a brand. I'm a brand," and I go, "Do you even know what is a brand to you?" And there's so many different meanings, and people have their own perception. But and I just said it, a brand is someone's perception. It's someone's perception of you and your product. How they perceive it is why they're going to purchase or not. They either like it, they don't like it. They're persuaded by whatever it is that you are showcasing to them. So branding is about perception. It's about stripping away the physical product. What are you left with? You're left with credibility, you're left with authenticity, you're left with the meaning, the why behind it. So to me, that's kind of my take on branding. It's changed over the years. It's not just a physical product. It's really about people's perception of what the product is and what the culture is. I think nowadays even more so.
Well, branding's never really been about the product. It's always been about the benefit to the product, what you're selling. We were in the beauty business for a long time. We weren't selling beauty products. We were selling hope. We were selling the benefits of using the product and feeling younger, looking younger. That's what you're selling, and that's what a brand is all about. What you're selling is the benefit, and if you can get that message across in a very good way, in a way that people connect with it and come off authentically, then you'll do quite well. But you have to be able to provide a great product that delivers results. That's sort of your foundation, because then once you have a product that delivers great results and you're true to your message and you just continue on that path. There's a lot of brands, there's a lot of great brands that started out fantastic. They started out doing wonderful things. Um, Tom Shoes is a great example, where they started out with this great brand, and you bought a pair of shoes, and they gave away a pair of shoes, and it was social branding and social marketing, and then they lost themselves and sort of fell apart because they got away from what their core message was, and so if when you deviate, that's when things go haywire.
It is, and I think there's a lot of people nowadays who, and that's why in my newest book, Why, What, How, I felt that there was now more than ever, everybody is really, I don't want to say desperate, but everybody is really trying to find what they can do in a very, very fast, efficient way. There's no more sweat equity. Nobody's patient anymore. They want to be overnight success. If you don't get a 10,000 views on something you post 5 minutes ago, it's like, oh, I'm a failure. Or if you don't sell, I mean, I've been patient for 15 years. Most people don't want to be patient for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So, there's so many different layers of building a brand and building something for yourself that you have to really be committed. You have to make sacrifices. You have to understand, and then the other thing you hear all the time is, oh, follow your passion. How often have you heard that? How many times do you meet someone who's passionate but broke? They don't have anything, Passion can be a hobby. But I always say be passionate about what you can actually make money from. The amount of people who don't see themselves as a business, it's like you're not doing this for charity work. If you're going all in on something, yes, do it, have the right work ethic, have good morals and a good culture and a good mindset. But you also have to understand, how can you make a living from this? I've gone all in. I left working at salons. I've made the sacrifices. I've decided to go all in. Like, I don't do the salon guy part-time. Like, if things are down, things are down. If things are up, things are up. It all relies on me. And I think nowadays a lot of people, they're not taking that leap because it's nerve-wracking. It's a risk, right? I mean, it's not easy, but
Well, I mean, we talk about this. I mean, we've been doing this show. This is the fourth season. And we talk about this very concept all the time and that's one of the reasons I started the show, is because people don't understand what it takes to make that risk and that sacrifice. There comes a point in time when you have to figure out if you actually have a business or not, and if you can make money. Because if you can't, then you have to take a step back and you have to restructure and say, well, something's not working. Generally, an entrepreneur comes up with an idea, says, I'm passionate about this, passionate about this product that I just designed. And this is when we come in with coaching. I coach entrepreneurs, And I'll get that all the time. Well, I came up with this design, and then we say, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I put this pitch deck together and I'm going to go out and raise money. And I said, nobody's going to want to invest in it. They're just not going to invest in it. You have to prove that you have a market for your product first. And so take what you have, but it's not fully developed. I don't care. Go out with your minimum viable product, one that works, find 10 people to buy it and get their feedback and figure out what they like or what they don't like. Because if you can't find people to buy your product, then you don't have a product. So you have to find a market and you have to have market fit. And you've got to be able to figure out what people want and what problem you solve. Because if you're not solving a problem, then you're just selling a product. And if you're just selling a product and not solving a problem and not providing a benefit, then you're going to struggle. You have to have it. And it even goes for how we approach our business. For example, when a client comes to us and says, we need help, we want to go from 5 million to 10 million, we want to do this, this, and this, we'll ask a whole bunch of questions about the product and about what they've done so far. And the big questions are always, why is a customer going to buy your product over a competitor? Why? If you have the same message as that competitor, and they have deeper pockets, you can't win that battle. So you can only win a battle if you have something unique or if you have something better. That's it. You have to be better or different. That's all you can be. Because if you're the same, then you're just competing on price and you're going to go all the way down to the bottom. It's just going to be a long, slow journey. And it may take you a while to realize it, but that's how it's going to be.
That's such a good point. And I recently, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about when it comes to this, but you talked about something about being different. See, I think a lot of times we always focus on being better. I want to have the best product. Mine's better. Now, for me, this is real world stuff, right? My YouTube channel, let's just take that for example. I have over 1 million subscribers. I think 1.1 million. And, I've over 3,000 pieces of content on my YouTube channel. And I've still to this day, I post videos 5 days a week, and I have my challenges. And I said to this one person who I was doing some show with, and I said, oh, I'm filming with, 5 cameras and this and that. And does that make me better? And he goes, a lot of guys, people, they focus so much on being better. He goes, whatever is going to make you different. If what you're doing makes you different than everyone else doing the same thing, that's what you should focus on. And I was like, wow, so many of us focus on just being better and better and better, when sometimes being different, like you said, is the key. It's just finding out what can you do that separates yourself in such a crowded market. Another layer of this and another dynamic with me specifically is, so being that I've been in the salon industry for many, many years, I always dealt with professional grade products. I've always dealt with salon products, distributors, people that focus purely on professionals. When I started my product line, it was a result of me doing my YouTube videos, doing hair on YouTube. Who wants to watch a bald guy do hair tutorials? I don't know, but millions of people do. So people were asking me what product I was using. I'm like, what do you care what I'm using? Then it went back to the same thing. Wow, I'm selling through education. So I kept promoting these random products I was using from brands who I knew and some I didn't know. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's an audience of people who actually trust what I have to say and are willing to purchase from my opinion, my influence. I need to have my own stuff. And then that's when the journey started. Now, it wasn't an overnight journey, and you know this because you've been in manufacturing and you know the whole game with this stuff, but it's been a very long journey of manufacturing, but I've gone direct to consumer. Because knowing the salon industry, knowing how stylists hate selling beauty products, I said, you know what? I'm cutting out the middleman and I'm going to my audience, which is mostly consumers. Now, I have had professional support over the years, and yes, I've done some professional stuff and built a name for myself in the industry, but I'm direct to consumer. They're the ones buying my stuff. Would I like more professionals to buy my stuff? Sure. But I've built my audience on direct to consumer as a professional. And
Yeah.
I think that's what separates me. And that also, lastly, on that is what makes me different in the crowded market of 96 brands selling a sea salt spray that have never spent a day as a hair professional.
Yeah. Again, I don't. I'm always aware of my competition, but I don't focus on it because I know that I know that the product that we provide is different and better. But I don't worry about it because there's a million there's a million marketing agencies out there. There's a million, but none have the pedigree we have. None have been doing this for 25 years. None have built their own brands. When I talk to a CEO of a brand that wants to get from 10 million to 20 million or 5 million to 10 million, and I say, here's the path that I would take, I'm not saying it because I read it in a book. I'm saying it because, hey, I did this 3 times and I can tell you where the stumbling blocks are and I have the scars on my back to prove it. So I'm trying to avoid you getting those scars. And I'm saying these are the steps you have to do it. So there's a bit of credibility there rather than some guy who, was selling insurance 2 years ago and all of a sudden figures out that he can do, outreach. It just doesn't work. So
Oh, wait, Phil, I think this is really important, though. What do you tell people? What do you tell that guy who says, who all they do focus on is their competition? Is it just purely a mental thing? Is it just block them out? How do you
I
do
mean,
it?
if you're going to get, if you're so hung up on your competition, you're never going to get anywhere because your mindset hasn't changed. Your mindset has to be focused on who you are and where you're going. Because if you're so hung up on your competition that's going to stifle you. You can't make decisions because you're too worried about what the competitors are doing. And I'm not saying don't be aware of your competitors. I want to be aware of my competitors. I look at it every day and I see, and I can read through the garbage, and so can everybody else. Guy comes up with an AI product tomorrow that all of a sudden is going to be able to run your ads for you. And I've seen this a million times. It started about a year and a half ago. These guys are promoting these apps that you plug this into your Shopify site, it'll run your ads. Really? It'll run your ads. What does it do? How does it get the content? Well, it gets the content from your product page. That's it. So whatever images you have on the product page, that's what it's going to show. Well, okay, we know that the customer wants authentic. We know that the customer wants a benefit. We know that the customer wants a message, and we know that the customer wants to relate to the personality of the brand. So are you going to be able to do that with AI? No, you're not going to be able to. And so every one of them gets a customer to sign up. They last 3 months. They realize the ads don't work and they drop them, but they don't care because they're a burn and churn type of business. And we're not like that. So we build ads that work. We don't lose our clients. We get clients. They come to us, we build their business. They don't want to leave. They'll ask us about these AI products, and we'll give them an honest opinion because we've tested them. And I'll say, hey, we have a client that we took over because they used this particular product that you're looking at, and I'll tell you how badly it messed up their site, and I'll tell you how badly it did some damage. And so, for so again, I don't really, I am not focused so much every day on my competitors. I'm aware of them. I know who they are. I know which ones are doing well and which ones aren't. But I know what we provide, and that's what I focus on, and that's what my message is. And but the flip side to that is, in our business, it's different when you're selling a consumer product. But in our business side of it, we're very particular about who we do business with. We don't take on every client. We have people that come to us, brands that come to us, and a lot of times we won't take them on because, or if we do take them on, uh, we have an agreement in the beginning. If we say, look, you have to change your mentality because you have a seller mentality right now, and you need to start thinking about building a brand. And everybody will say yes, 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 yes. And then as soon as you sign the agreement, they're like, okay, first thing we want to do is we want to run ads. And you go, well, what are we going to say in the ads? I can run ads for you, but what are we going to say? Do you just want me to put up a picture of your product and say 10% off? Because that's just not going to work. What do you want to say about your product? And, well, I have the best such and such. Well, how do you know? And so, that doesn't last long for us because you have to give us something. We can't help you if you can't help yourself. So again, competitors, yeah, you want to pay attention to them. You want to know who they are, but you don't want to focus on them because you'll drive yourself crazy. It's like people who pay attention to everybody on LinkedIn. Everybody on LinkedIn is a CEO who 10x their sales, exited 5 businesses, blah blah blah, and now they're a coach, and now they're okay. So what you're saying is that I literally had a guy who wanted to come on the show, 26 years old. He's telling me that he started and sold 6 businesses. And I looked him up online, and I said, if you look me up online, if you go and Google me, you can see everything that I say. You can you can absolutely verify and validate everything I say. It's happened. But when somebody comes to me and says, I did this, and I look online and there's nothing about you, then that's just, it's what you're trying to do is create the image. You're trying to get on as many podcasts and shows as you can so that people say, oh yeah, he was on this show. He's started 6 businesses, and it's not true. So you got to be careful about what you buy into, and like I said, we stay focused. I keep my people focused on what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're going after, and so because when we do get clients, they stick with us. Number one, and number two is we get results for them, and they appreciate that. And there aren't a lot of businesses out there. I was talking to someone this morning who also has an agency a little different than ours, and they said the same thing, that they have plenty of clients who come to them after they've been burned so many times by other agencies who promise the world. So yeah.
I've been through that. I've been through that. I think it's interesting. Your take on competition, and the reason I wanted to ask you that is just because everyone has their reasons for why they aren't succeeding. In entrepreneurship, I've said numerous times, I can only blame myself for not growing. Right? If I'm somebody who watches 6 hours a day of reality TV shows and plays video games for 4 hours, but works on my brand for half an hour a day, who's to blame? Me or the TV? So I think a lot of people nowadays, they're not really putting in the effort, and it's painful, Phil. It's not easy. The amount of sacrifices I've had to do, the amount of time people question, why do you get up at 5:30 in the morning? Why do you do this? Well, if you expect to make $1 million, how are you going to do it? Waking up at noon? And everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is different with entrepreneurship.
Oh, no question about it. I think the successful entrepreneurs definitely put in the work and stay focused. But again, if something's not working, uh, and 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 it happens to everybody. I'm going to say this: it happens to everybody. We we have I provide coaching services. I don't push it. It comes out of, it's really a offshoot of what we do every day. We have clients, again, people that want to get from 5 million to 10 million, 10 million to 20 million, and everybody hits a wall. Everybody, I don't care who you are, they hit a wall. Get a guy who starts a business, he goes from 0 to 5 million, and he thinks he's on top of the world, and all of a sudden everything he did to get to 5 million stops working, and then he gets lost in his head. And people like that come to me, and they'll ask for help, and we have a process to help them. And it generally comes down to looking at what are the things that are working and what are the things that aren't working. And again, it happens to everybody. I'll give you a quick one about Larry Ellison and Oracle, because before Oracle was the big behemoth it is today, back in the early 90s, 1991, 92, Oracle was still a fairly small company, and they had grown, right? They had gone from 0 to I don't know how much they were doing at that point, but it wasn't anywhere close to where they are today. But what Larry Ellison realized at that point was that the team that he had that got him from zero to where he was not the team that was going to be able to get him. I think they were doing 100 million, was not going to be able to get him from 100 million to a billion. It wasn't going to happen. And he had to make a very tough decision, because when you think about starting up, you've got this team of people, you're working hard, everybody's contributing, people are doing 12 different things. And all of a sudden now you get to this point where you have to put structure around it in order to get going. Well, you have to make tough business decisions. And he had to basically get rid of his entire senior team and bring in a whole new team to get him from 100 million to a billion. It was a business decision. He liked those people. He respected those people. I'm sure he compensated those people, but it was very critical because the business wasn't going to survive without it. So sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes it's a question of strategy. Sometimes the strategy that you employ to get from 0 to 10 isn't going to get you from 10 to 20. You have to change. Maybe your systems are broken. I'll tell you another good one. And we just went through this with a client. They're a big company that sells food products, and the CEO of the company took them from 0 to, I think they're doing 21 or 22 million. But they've been stuck. So he said, "Can you help us?" I said, "Yeah." We had a strategy meeting. We went for a 2-day away and walked through everything. And what I noticed about the guy was his salespeople were there. His head of sales, who was a A+ player, his head of brand was there, chief marketing officer. And what I noticed, though, was everything that the sales guy said, these conversations that you have in between, the structure, he wanted to be on every call and he wanted to be involved in every meeting. And I said, this is what's holding you back. You've got A+ player who's the head of your sales, and he can't do his job because he has to schedule calls around your schedule, which is a tight schedule because you're also running operations, you're also running marketing, you're also running all this stuff. You're talking to the vendors, you're talking to suppliers. You can't be on every meeting. You just can't do it. So this is what's holding you back. Your control issues are holding you back. And that literally was the problem. And so once he decided that was the problem, I mean, he's struggling to let go, but he is trying to let go. But that is an obstacle to growth.
It is. Speaking of that and shifting is, talking about my new book, Why, What, How. This actually hit Amazon bestseller in marketing, and for a short time, it actually outperformed Russell Brunson, one of his books, and Alex Hormozy for a short period. But it's, I've been saying when it comes to strategy, like you mentioned, I've been saying if you can answer those 3 questions, why, what, how, that's going to help you pinpoint where you're struggling, what you need to do. The why is, why do you do what you do? Why do you want to do what you want to do? And then what are you actually going to do? So for me, the why is the fuel. It was my mother, rest her soul. It was, all the strength and courage. It was the reasoning of why I wanted to start doing something. And then I said, well, what the heck am I going to do? So I started going to hair shows with a microphone and a camera guy, interviewing people and creating a brand for myself and becoming a media personality. The how was happening, and I kept learning more and more. The what, and then finally the how is the tactical. So you've got the why, the what are you going to do, and then how are you going to do it? And I think the how sometimes is where a lot of people get lost, because that's the executional part of it. How are you going to film what you're going to film? How are you going to do this show? How are you going to, edit it? How are you going to spend hours? Like, all of those things tied together. And I wanted to create a very short tactical handbook because everybody wants quick information. This isn't like, 6 chapters of how I played soccer. This is, as a kid, this is about, a very tactical handbook. It's a short read. It's a very intense read, but at the same time, it gives you a clear path and strategy based off of my real world experiences. If you can't be authentic and you don't have the street cred, how is someone going to trust you? How is someone going to look at you as a brand? Just like you mentioned, guess what, everyone? There's something called Google. In a lot of keynote speeches I've done, people say, well, how do you separate the fakes and this and that? And I said, well, if someone's trying to pitch you on something, there's this thing you should check out called Google. Google their name, and whatever comes up, there you go. Like you mentioned, you Google this guy, nothing comes up. So if you can find stuff on someone and you can smell the BS a mile away, well, guess what? Maybe you shouldn't work with that person. And sometimes it takes a lot of learning experiences to understand that. But I think that nowadays people don't want to go through the pain. They don't want to go through the ups and downs. They don't know what it's like. And that's the old school way of thinking. Just like with all the projects you've done, you've been the first to do a lot of things. I've been the first to do a lot of things. Now we try to apply those methods to today, and sometimes it works, sometimes it may not work. But I think the fact that when you can really show someone you've been through the trenches and have that real world credibility, then it's going to really help you. And that's really what it comes down to, is the how. A lot of people give up because they don't understand how to do what they're going to do. They feel like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this because I'm motivated and I'm passionate. Yeah, I'm going to make cooking videos. Okay, cool. But like, I'm not going to make any money from that because it's not really going to tie into anything that I'm really knowledgeable. So like, but they just want to do it. 7 months go by with them making all this stuff and wasting all this precious time, and they're left with like a cool concept and like 9 YouTube videos. But what have you, like, how does that help you as a business? Which is essentially, people go on social media to post stuff on their phones because guess what? They want to get a lot of views because they want to become a brand and make a lot of money as someone who's an influencer or selling a product. It all comes down to making money from something. No one really likes to admit that, but that's what it comes down to. That's what a business is for, to make money. So everybody wants to be famous overnight and do this overnight and that overnight. They don't want to put the work in, and they think they're going to make all sorts of money. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like 15 years I've been patient and grinding. Even to this day, I'm still doing it.
Well, there's a lot of people who, started out making videos on social with no real goal in mind, just because they enjoyed doing it or they had something to say, that wound up turning it into a business because they saw the opportunity. So
Yep.
not everybody has a plan, and believe me, I've seen guys do. I mean, when I say guys, I mean men and women do all kinds of things just for the love of it and turn it into a business. And
Yep.
I spoke to a guy this morning who was in the car business, and he was in the car business, but he had a passion for chocolate, and of all things, and he just loved it. And he went and he came up with this process to do filled chocolates, but chocolate bars. And he developed this piece of machinery and he started making chocolate. And now he's got a brand. He's been doing it in South America and Europe for years. And now he's trying to bring it to the United States. And it's a unique thing. And it came out of the fact that he loved making chocolate. And there was another guy that was on this show a couple of weeks ago. During COVID, he was stuck in the house. Everybody was stuck in their house. He started making hot sauces for gifts, and he gave it out to friends and family just because nobody was going out shopping and things like that, and birthdays and Christmas and stuff. And he made all these gift baskets, and people loved the sauces. And he's turned that into a business. And so, people start out all kinds of different ways. It's just a question of whether or not they see it. But when I think it's also a good way of testing the waters to see if you have a product that can get an audience. Glossier, another great one. She started out as a blog. She started out as a blog, part-time after work. She was working in New York. She was writing this blog all about beauty products and things like that. She got 1 million followers, 1 million signups. She had an email list of 1 million people, and then she was doing that for a couple of years before she decided to launch her first product. She knew exactly what to launch because she'd been talking to 1 million people, 1 million women, and she's unbelievably successful today. It's $1 billion company. So I'm a firm believer in testing, talking, seeing what you can do. So to me, sometimes you don't always have to have a business in mind to make money. Sometimes it comes from what you do. So,
and you're right. But that's the thing is you just said it. It comes from something that you eventually see you can monetize it. You know what I mean? And so yeah, you're right. It comes from experimenting, and sometimes it takes a few bombs in order to hit it. But yeah, it comes from at least trying and seeing. Like the chocolate story, he saw that, you know what, I have a passion for chocolates, but I could actually make money from this. Everybody has that moment of like, wait a minute, I love this idea. I can actually make this something, and something happens by accident. Oh, I had 5 of my friends try my chocolates, and they said, "Oh, can I buy that from you?" And you're like, "Wait, what? You want to buy this?" And that's how it starts. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of people give up before they even get to that point. Like they don't really have the knowledge, and it takes a lot of experimenting and knowledge and know-how in order to do those things, to have that vision, to be, have some sort of intelligence to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. And there's a lot of people who have so many skills that don't capitalize on that. They just let it slide behind. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you actually would use your talents for something, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh my gosh.
well, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And so, some people don't have a plan. They just take that one step and they start down the path. But it's all about finding an audience. It's all about finding a customer who's going to buy and want your product. And if your product is food videos, you can monetize that. And there's a lot of garbage out there now. There's people out there that everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be a micro influencer. Everybody wants to monetize their social channels, but not everybody can. And again, it's another area that we deal with every day where, because we're trying to get micro influencers for our brands, for the brands we work with, and people will throw out numbers. Well, we're not interested in doing free videos. We want to get paid to do them. Well, you want to get paid to do them now up front because you're not confident in the fact that you can sell, right? And that's really what it comes down to. People who want $500 or $1,000 a video, you have to show that you're worth it. And there's so many people who buy followers and just make it look. It's just not, it's just not a good look. So, but you have to be savvy.
Let me ask you, yeah, and let me ask you this. So say you've got somebody, a new client of yours, and they come to you and they say, I don't really care about putting out my own content. I don't want to do it. I'm hiring you to do all this. Like, do you ever say to them, well, you even know what it's like to build something from the ground up? I mean, like, what do you tell somebody, even people watching this? Like, for all the people who are just like, oh, I want to just, I don't want to put the legwork in, or I don't know how to do this. Do you think it's important to learn how to do a lot of things before you hire someone? Do you think hiring someone right out of the gate is beneficial to you? Because there's a lot of parts to that that's important.
Oh, they wouldn't hire. I mean, we wouldn't take them on as a client if they're not willing to do it. I mean, we have people, don't get me wrong, we have clients who are afraid to get in front of the camera because they're self-conscious or whatever. And we tell them all the time, that's what makes it beautiful. don't be self-conscious, because you are what your brand is all about. They want to hear from you. People don't want to, your customer base is not going to sit there and judge you because, you're not, a size 2 blonde 6'3" woman, hawking your product. That those aren't, they're not selling. Those are just getting male viewers. So, we have to talk them through that. But if somebody says, well, I have this product, but you make all the content and I'll just worry about selling it, that's not right for us. We're not into that. So you have to take part in your brand. But listen, so people want to get in touch with you. How do they get in touch with you? First of all, your book is available on Amazon. Anywhere else?
It's Apple, Barnes and Noble. It's got all sorts of distribution. So, but Amazon, I always tell people go to Amazon. It's called Why, What, How. If you just type in my name, Stephen Marinaro, you'll see this is my second book actually, but this did hit Amazon bestseller for how that works for a short period of time. But I did get it, and all of my social media is The Salon Guy, all one word. TikTok, YouTube. I have, once again, Google me, but it's The Salon Guy, all one word, and I have a great range of hair products that are unisex and really, really high quality stuff. And that's also available, shop.thesalonguy.com.
Great. So yeah, it was a good discussion. Good discussion about branding. Good discussion about social media, and I hope everybody out there enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it, and tune in to us next week when we have another great guest. So we'll see you next week.